It's February 26th, 7 p.m. Planning board meeting. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight. There we go. First on the agenda is a public hearing for a four-lot subdivision on Cross Street for Dustin and Mary Keenestorp. Do you want to read the notice?
I don't have to read the notice, but the notice was published in the paper on February 18th, and it was also put on the website before that. So it was properly posted.
Okay, do we? Just read that.
We used to read it, but I've been informed by the attorney that I'm not required to read it. So it's down on the time.
Okay, so. To come up to the podium and this is a public hearing for Dustin and Mary Keenestorp on their subdivision. Keenestorp. So the public hearing is open. Anybody on Zoom for this public hearing? Okay. So subdivision, declare a major subdivision. Lots requiring easements of the right of ways, that's why it was a major subdivision. The short plan was submitted but not reviewed, it's not on the APA. Public hearing. Seeker.
Your paperwork from last week. Last month, sorry. Have yours, John?
Okay. What I went through.
I don't.
All right,
No, I wasn't prepared for any.
this is part one. This is part two and part three. And what you're gonna need to do is check them off. And then we'll finish filling it out. And yes, you will need to sign it. So I will need this back from my file, okay? Oh, Josh has been reading them.
Oh, Josh can read it.
I can do it. I don't have a part test.
I just need mine too, John.
John, I need. No, I don't need her.
Okay.
All right.
Name of the project for lot subdivision lands of. What?
Justin and Mary Canistor.
Canastor,
Yeah.
okay. Project location. 1993 and 1997 Call Street, Lake Luzerne. Applicant is requesting a lot line change and subdivision of 2 existing vacant lots to create 4 building lots. Does the proposed action only involve the legislative adoption of a plan, local law, ordinance, administrative rule, or regulation? No. Does the proposed action require permit, approval, or funding from any other government agency? No. Total acreage of the site of the proposed action, 6.03 acres. Total acreage to be physically disturbed, 0. Total acreage owned or controlled by the applicant or project sponsors, 6.03. All land uses that occur on the lot or adjoining lots, forest and rural. Is the proposed action a permitted use under the zoning regulations? Yes, and it's consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan. The proposed action is consistent with the predominant character of the existing built or natural landscape. The site of the proposed action is not located on or adjoin a state-listed critical environmental area. Will not result in a substantial increase in traffic. Public transportation services are not available at or near the site. Pedestrian accommodations or bicycle routes are not available on or near the site. Does the proposed action meet or exceed the state energy code requirements? No. Will the proposed action connect to an existing public-private water supply? No. Any future construction would include drilling wells for individual water supplies. Will the proposed action connect to existing wastewater utilities? No. Any future construction would include installation of individual septic systems for each lot. Does the project site contain or is it substantially contiguous to a building, archaeological site, or district which is listed on the National or State Register of Historic Places or been determined by the Commissioner of the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation to be eligible for listing on the State Register of Historic Places? No. Is the project site or any portion of it located in or adjacent to an area designated as sensitive for archaeological sites on the New York State Historic Preservation Office Archaeological Site Inventory? No. Does any portion of the site of the proposed action or lands adjoining the proposed action contain wetlands or other water bodies regulated by a federal, state, or local agency? Yes. Would the proposed action physically alter or encroach into any existing wetland or water body? No. Identify the typical habitat types that occur on or are likely to be found on the project site. Forest is the only thing checked. Does the site of the proposed action contain any species of animal or associated habitats listed by the state or federal government as threatened or endangered? No. The project is not located in the 100-year flood plan. The project will not create stormwater discharge either from point or non-point sources. Stormwater discharge will not flow to adjacent properties. Will stormwater discharge be directed to established conveyance systems? No. Does the proposed action include construction or other activities that would result in the impoundment of water or other liquids? No. Has the proposed action or adjoining property been the location of an active or closed solid waste management facility? No. Has the site of the proposed action or an adjoining property been the subject of remediation for hazardous waste? No. So that was part 1. All right, so the choices for part 2 are no or small impact may occur or moderate to large impact may occur. Unless I hear differently, I'm going to check no or small impact. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with the adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies or public-private wastewater treatment utilities? Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources? Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? All right, so every question was answered with no or small impact may occur. So if someone wants to, they can make a resolution that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts.
I have one question. 13 and 14. 13, it says yes. Are the wetlands on adjoining property? Is that why you said yes and not checked it 14?
So the question was about wetlands or water bodies. And these, one whole side of this property is the center of Beaver Dam Creek. So
Okay.
technically, yes, but it's, because of setbacks to any, future construction. I mean, we're not proposing any construction at this point, but essentially they can't touch that area. So
I know.
there is a body of water, but no, nothing is going to encroach into that body of water.
So on number 14, should we check wetlands also?
So I gave my copy to Mary, so I don't have it.
Yeah, you only checked force. I have it. I have your copy. You only checked force.
Project sites.
Well, I mean, the shoreline of the slide here, we're talking shoreline of the creek.
So it's not wetlands, it's shoreline.
We don't have the identified wetlands that we're aware of,
Okay,
so we're not saying wetlands to that. It's just that because we mentioned that there was.
13 is vague, so it's
Yeah.
that property or adjoining, so that's why I was asking, is there
Right, yeah,
wetlands
13.
on the property?
Yeah, so not that we're aware of. no.
Okay, then that's fine, thank you.
Right.
Just wanted that clarified.
Unless you want to include shoreline in that, and I'll just constitute the shoreline with the creek. Okay.
What do you think?
I don't think a creek will,
I was just concerned about the wetlands. Thank you.
On a proposed action will not result in a significant.
I'll make a motion that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts.
I'll second.
All right, motion that the proposed action will not result in any negative or adverse actions. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Once again, is there anybody that wishes to make any comments? Hearing is still open.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second. All right, motion to close the public hearing, all in favor? Hey. Any opposed? Motion carried.
You can approve the subdivision.
Oh.
I don't have the original sheet, because of the,
So this would be the preliminary plat, because this was a major subdivision.
You weren't here for the other meeting, but because it's a major subdivision, not minor. If they approve the preliminary plat, you have to come back with the final plat for a final approval.
Sure.
Okay.
So do we make the motion to?
right, to approve the preliminary plat.
I'll make the motion to approve the preliminary plat.
Second. And that's as it is with no modifications.
Correct. All right, motion to approve the preliminary plat for 2025 SD1. All in favor?
No.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Yeah. We have a boundary investment application to approve BL-4. Applicants Howard and Wendy Schaefer, David and Susan Zondergren, I believe.
Yes, hi, good evening. I'm Rich from Engineering representing the Schaefers.
Okay.
If you guys would like me to move that board any closer, please let me know, but you should have a copy of that as well in front of you. We were here a few months ago, last year with this same request for a lot line adjustment. And we found out we had to go to zoning because currently the two lots are not conforming, being that their size is too small. So we did attend the zoning meeting. Find out when that was done. On December,
12th,
what was that, the 12th?
December 12th.
Thank you. And then it was approved. For the two lots to have, I think they're roughly 16,000 square feet, a little over 16,000 square feet each. So they did approve the lot size to now be conforming. The proposed lot line adjustment. What it does is it gives some property to the owner on the south side and takes some from the owner on the north side. But it leaves them with both exactly the same size property of 16,000 something square foot. The reason we're asking for the lot line adjustment is because the Schaefers would like to construct a house there. And due to setback limitations, they needed more side yard setback. So obviously, both applicants, the Schaefers who own the property on the north and the owners of the property on the south are in total agreement, and they both have an application in, and that's what we're here to hopefully get approval for today.
So is the future building gonna be kind of central to that space between the left and the right? Where it kind of bulged out?
Yes, I should have pointed out the red line is the existing line and the blue line is the proposed lot line adjustment. And correct, the house would be located in the widest part of the property there.
they conform to the setbacks for, us, as far as. Also, I guess height too, whether they're height limit.
Yeah, the height, we are gonna go back to zoning for, yes. And I believe it will conform to the setbacks. That's why we adjusted it this way, so we could conform.
Also, process with APA. APA is going to make them get a permit for the house. Because of the height, there's a height limit and an APA of 40 feet. And so they have to get a permit through APA for that. They're in the process of that. The paperwork has been submitted to APA. I've gotten notification of that. And they have not yet filed for a variance for the height with the zoning board, but there's no reason to until the boundary line is approved, if you approve it.
Supposedly, we're just concerned with the boundary line. Anything past that, they would have to come back to us or the zoning board or what, okay.
And just not to scare you on the height, it's actually just a one-story home. So it's just that the property drops off so much in the rear that it's the rear of the property where you get into a height issue. But the front is just a single-story home.
Is that from the seeker? We can approve this without the APA, any approval.
It does not require jurisdictional anything on a boundary line adjustment. They suggest that they submit a letter, which they did, and it came back as non-jurisdictional. The boundary line part of it came back as non-jurisdictional.
Okay,
The building of the house, they are going to require them to get a permit.
just the house, right? Okay. We also cannot have a public hearing. It's up to the board.
I don't see any reason to for the boundary line adjustment.
My only concern is it's on the lake. And with the development going in on the lake.
Again, though, but this is for boundary line
Yes,
adjustment,
this is strictly
not
for
for
the
the
board.
building, it's not for the development of the parcel, it's just for adjusting a boundary line, which. You know, they could do that and then 100 years go by without building anything. It's just a boundary line adjustment. So I don't think this is I'm not opposed to ultimately having one, but
They're gonna leave the boundary line.
you have to go through the whole process again,
twisted
which.
like this.
Most likely, yes.
Yeah.
Right, they have to.
They come-
Right, we have to go through the process
Right.
again to move it.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
So if someone wants to make a motion as far as the public hearing,
we'll make a motion not to hold a public hearing.
Second.
Who's? It's not like Pam. Yes, Pam.
There's both, they both said it.
All right, motion to not have a public hearing. Roll call vote. Tony Springer,
Yes.
Josh Fisher,
Yes.
Michael Penich,
Yes,
Rose Albatora,
Yes.
Pamela Pettis.
Yeah.
Mary Ellen Allison
Yes.
and Chairman John Karimsky.
yes.
All right, all in favor, motion carried.
And last on the list is to approve, this is the final plat. Karen, this is the final plat, okay. And this is basically just for the boundary line adjustment.
I'll make a motion to approve the final plat for the boundary line adjustment.
Second.
Josh. All right, motion to approve 2024 boundary line adjustment 4. All in favor?
Well,
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
John. On the previous one for the 4-lot subdivision, I need that front one back on the secret back from my file. Okay?
Yes,
Set it aside and later, so area.
I see it was signed already by. Okay,
Ready.
okay. Site plan review. 2025 SP-1, applicant is Laura Pavelko. So it looks like in the description of the proposal, you're going to use it for furniture sales.
Yes.
Occupation space, separate parcel building, will contain retail space, office and storage prep space. It says approved.
Yes, they went in front of the zoning board and they were approved for a lot that is substandard size for this retail use. She was granted the variance.
Well, restaurant over there?
Was the Naughty Pine Diner.
Oh,
years ago. Many years ago. It actually has not been occupied or open for like 26 years. 4 generations of mice, I believe. Oh, and I don't have a copy of my application, so if you read it, I won't know
Okay.
what it's about.
Well, the question was just, so this is what it says.
I forgot to get a copy
That's all right.
when I submitted it.
Just out of curiosity, making the furniture on site or?
No, it's being made in my house. That's why I had to get a home use permit.
Gotcha.
Some, there'll be like slight assembly. But
Is it like ironic furniture then,
no, it's really just my own inventions. I was the carpenter for the hitching post.
Oh,
When
okay.
they first got up and running for 3 years, I did the restoration. I was the preservationist at the hitching post. So I made all the tables that are in the restaurant. I did a lot of the restoration work and made furniture while I was there. So it just, this is just, I worked myself out of a job. So now I'm doing this.
It looks very nice in there.
Thank you. You see anything with a green pine tree on it over there? I made that.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind.
That's my signature.
Parking spots, is this what's required? 6 parking spots for this business?
I was never told what was required. I just drew
I
that out.
haven't
of the-
looked at that. That's kind of up to you guys to be checking, so.
Yeah, I just put those on there
I think
just because.
when the time comes, you'll probably have to include accessible designated spot, the access aisle and stuff,
Yeah, I'm not expecting more than 3 people at a time.
right?
It's very small
Never know.
things.
But I think even so, there's gonna be code requirements and stuff for accessible spaces and stuff like that.
I think that Warren County Building Codes, once they get in there, because you'll have to get a change of use permit with them, they'll take care of like all the handicap yeah, parking and all of that
Okay.
when they do it.
That should get out of APA.
In your file, but she has filed for one, because I had to. You haven't, she was told she needed a permit. She has filed the paperwork for that because I had to fill out a form for that for her. So it's in process, correct?
Yeah. And you, excuse me, you don't own this building?
No, I'm renting. I live
So
Next door, yeah.
Oh, is Marie Remecki, is she the owner or is she?
Yes.
Okay, so she don't live here. But it's already in process and we can approve it, as long as they approve it. I mean, if they don't, then it's not approved.
Anybody see a need for a public hearing or? Any?
I don't think so.
I'll make a motion to not have a public hearing.
I'll second.
Motion not to have a public hearing, all in favor?
Make a motion to approve the application pending APA permit.
I'll second.
Second. All right, motion to approve 2025 SP1 based off the conditions of the APA approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
That's it.
Look.
Everyone speaks on this.
No, I want to know when I can open the shop.
That you'd have to talk to Karen about.
What's the rule?
You've been approved. So your next step is to contact Warren County, see if they need anything for you to open. And once if you need something from them, once you've gotten a certificate of completion or occupancy, then you can open.
Doesn't she need the permit? The APA permit?
APA permit first.
Oh, okay, so, because that, I sent them
for that,
papers, they
that's
sent
right.
me more questions, I sent them more papers, they sent me more questions.
The ironic
That
question.
might keep happening for a few rounds.
Once you actually get that, then you're good to go. I mean, if you want to start something, you use a date saying no, then you're done was not.
No, but I could put the open sign
Have the APA permit.
okay. Thank you.
And you need to, again, contact Warren County to see if they're gonna require anything.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come see me.
Look forward to seeing it.
Is that what you want me to do, Mary?
Yes.
Okay, next is the continued public hearing for 18 conservation subdivision, second driveway to a road in Luzerne. Come up to them. Still the open public hearing. Can we hold this?
Time limit, 3 minutes.
I would.
It's up to you guys.
I would again.
So there's a limit of how many minutes?
Okay, my name is Kevin Boyd. I live at 145 Sagamore Drive in Lake Luzerne. I basically was here at the workshop last week and there was a segment brought up in terms of seeing a deed of anyone or how it's written up in the deed for the lake rights. I currently have, which I got from public information from the county clerk's office in documents. And on the deed, it basically has Schedule A, together with an assessment copy of a roadway owned by the grantor to the beach located Lake Luzerne westerly of Lot 21, and both known as map second section of Sagamore Heights and Lake Luzerne, dated August 28, 1956, and recorded November 28, 1968, in Warren County Clerk's Office, together with the right to use said beach and to bathe in the waters of Lake Luzerne. I also was able to get the current deeds for the Luzerne Woods LLC property. And on their deeds, it states that they have no rights to the property for access to the beach and bathing in Lake Luzerne. I was willing to provide these to the town or to the board. So if anyone wanted to look at them, they could take a look and see what a deed looks like with the rights for that. And also showing the deeds for the Luzerne Woods property, which basically states that they have there's no stating that they have rights to the beach right. Thank you.
Thank you.
If anyone wants any of that information, contact me. I'll scan it in and email it out.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, anyone else? To make a comment? It's here. So. So. Properties, conservation subdivision zone, zone states. You want to come to the podium and. Who wants to sit up here at the podium? Yeah, I guess the engineer and. So. Shop and we had a bunch of questions. Did Karen like send you? Through?
Yep,
Okay.
she sent over those questions. Yep. I know a lot of these questions you had them for the town engineer,
Right.
some of them for the, obviously the developers, some for the zoning department, but we read through them. We've got, response to anything you want to ask us, if you want us to go through them one at a time.
Yeah, that's what we should go through one at a time.
You want to go through the T ones or just the developer ones?
I can sit up there and go through.
Yeah.
I think the best.
Most efficient way. Come on up.
Do this together.
John, have the list in your packet.
Right.
Yeah, I would go through it as it's written so that we can check it off. That's done.
This is. Addresses erosion concerns of the development due to steep slopes.
Yeah, so essentially, they have to comply with a DEC SWIP. So it's going to be a general permit for construction activities for stormwater. So within that, they have to handle any erosion and sediment control measures, during construction, then also post-construction control measures. So doing a cursory look at everything, when we looked, it looked like they, did a good job addressing these items. I didn't see anything major, anything to do with steep slopes for erosion sediment control. They'll have, riprap to, dissipate and minimize erosion at the site. I don't know if you have anything else to add or.
Yeah, I mean, during construction, since this is under a DC speed use permit, it'll require weekly inspections as well. So there'll be a third-party inspector on the site that keeps a report. DEC has the right to come out to the site whenever they want to inspect it if there's reported issues. The nice thing about this site is it's a bowl also. So there's not like water, nothing's really running towards the road or towards any of your properties. Everything kind of runs through the middle of it, which makes it a little bit easier to contain. But yeah, there'll still be erosion sediment control stuff. Inspections will be done weekly out there.
Okay. Does anybody have questions on this question on the board? Water systems to the aquifer. The WED will address the distance to the wellheads and shown they're over 600 feet away. 200 feet is required by DOH law. Should the planning board be concerned regarding the proximity of the development to the aquifer and the depth of that development above the aquifer?
I would, again, I wasn't at the meeting where they presented this, but due to, the separation at the site, it's substantial and it's well beyond what's typically required for wellhead protection. I did not see any issue. We're personally not concerned with it. Also, on another note, any potential contamination issues they're taking care of with stormwater and the treatment end for post-construction control measures. And then also on the sanitary sewer end, they have to do a design in accordance with, DOH is involved with DOH Realty subdivision. So any septic systems and discharges, there should be no contamination to the groundwater table with a proper design.
Okay, so that, we have to do this for DOH, but we don't have that, nobody's looked at it yet, correct? So we don't know what they're gonna say?
That happened.
Yeah, you can address it. I don't think they're gonna flag it as an issue. They look at wellhead protection zones. They have, I always get the appendices wrong, but it's New York State DOH. They have appendix 5B and 5D. There's wellhead protection requirements that have to be satisfied within that. There's probably other neighboring septic systems that are closer proximity than what their proposed subdivision is from this site. Like 200-foot radius around those wells is what's typically required. When you're in the direct path of surface water, which you are not at this site, those distances can increase by 50%. But again, I don't see that as an impact to their overall development and how they designed this. I think we have more than enough proximity to satisfy requirements and minimize any risk to the existing system.
If it did have a situation where it increased by 50% the requirement, you're still beyond that.
Oh, well
50%.
beyond, yeah, correct.
So it would increase to 300 feet, right?
Yeah.
So the site is not in a direct path of the surface water.
No, and you also have a hydraulic barrier, it looks like, in between too. I mean, I'm not a hydrogeologist, I don't pretend to be one, but
And we did submit this to DOH. We did just get comments back from them, I think maybe a week and a half ago. And this was not a comment of theirs on separation distance from the wastewater to the wellheads.
and another note in the impact of development side of it, it is a pretty low flow what's anticipated, on the sanitary sewer end, with only 18 homes.
Can I see that diagram?
Yeah, that's the same one that I had in the board at the one meeting there showing the radiuses. Yep.
Mhm.
The blue area is the area of the wells heads going up in there.
I think we have that. We're here, we actually had a map, at a workshop.
The workshop?
Yes.
Yeah, it's absolutely a workshop, but
Okay.
I'll have to see this mainly for context for the existing, there's, existing properties that are closer than the proposed.
All set, Mike?
Yes.
Anyone else have any more questions on this? Okay. Moving on, concerns regarding the environmental assessment of this development. The environmental assessment was a full environmental assessment review from some public felt it was assessed only in the winter months. This full assessment review take into account all the seasons and are there any environmental concerns that need to be addressed? Concern was, did the town engineer base his review off of what the developer provided, or did you do your own assessment?
Yes, so I can answer that. So the environmental review is not seasonal. It's looking at the impacts of the overall development as proposed to be constructed. What's the other question here? Did we base our review? Or are there any other environmental concerns that need to be addressed? I would say no. They seem to be included in the environmental report, and I'm sure that'll be addressed if that's happening tonight as well with parts 2 and 3. So the applicant, the typical process is they fill out part 1 of the environmental assessment form, which they did. We did a, a review of that on top of it. Everything looked accurate to us. The reason the applicant does it, which typically the applicant's engineer will handle it, is because they're more familiar with the site and how it's going to be built and developed. So everything looked, looked good on that end. And then we completed parts 2 and 3. And then you, as the planning board, when you review, if there's any other concerns that you may have, you're welcome to obviously add that piece in as we go through environmental review.
Questions by? For engineers, but the wetlands are too small to fall in either of the jurisdictions. Concerns about the wetlands in this development.
Yes, so. No, we don't really have any regarding the wetlands. The other agencies that are typically jurisdictional with wetlands are not jurisdictional to our knowledge on this, which is DC, Army Corps, EPA. Correct me if I'm wrong too, but you're not disturbing the wetlands either as far as.
Yeah, there's a little bit of disturbance to the one wetland area in the middle. The road, there's some grading that goes into it, but we try to minimize it as much as we could. But there is minimal.
Okay, but we didn't see anything major, and I know there's a question later on, which I'll leave that to that portion with the DEC with the parcel jurisdictional determination. We can talk about that when we get to that one.
Any questions from the others? Concerns of stormwater, as well as concerns where the proposed stormwater proposal would handle the room.
Yeah, so again, they're doing a thorough design with their stormwater. They completed a stormwater pollution prevention plan that, they're required to design in accordance with the general permit for construction activities with DEC. So within that, it does appear to handle the stormwater runoff. I know, we did issue comments and they'll come back to us. So we will do another cursory look at everything before we give our final sign off. Yep. But it was they did a good job on it.
Actually, I have access to a private beach. That would be for the developer. Represents the developer.
So, good evening. As we previously talked about, that is not part of this development that we're looking to do, that beach property. Eric, basically the owner of the private beach maintains the rights to allow access to any determined is acceptable, whether they're in the subdivision or outside of it. So it really has no part of this project, as we've previously stated.
So your
Right.
homeowners would not have rights to the beach.
That's
Whoever
something that
bought
would be up to the
Okay.
owner of
Yes or
the
no,
property
saying
owns
that.
the beach.
It's not. It's an actual.
What's the name of the?
Under I'm not sure of the LLC. I think, is it Luzerne Woods? Okay, thanks for. Eric is on, if you could unmute him, perhaps.
He's still on?
He did.
He did.
I'm here. Hi, guys.
Can you
Hello. Hello.
Just clarify, Eric,
before you speak, the planning board made a resolution that anybody speaking on Zoom must. You have to see who they are.
Yeah, sure. No problem. Sorry, y'all. Sorry, I'm in the home office. Yeah, so we've talked about this before. The beach is not part of this project. That initial diagram that ended up in the Luzerne Association paper that showed that beach having any relevance to this project, that's a separate deed. It's owned by the same LLC or one of the two LLCs that owns the development that we submitted for the housing development, but that beach has no relevance to this property. So I know it keeps coming up. I know it's got people frustrated, but it's 100% owned by the beach, by the Luzerne Woods, and in no way plans to infringe on anybody's access to the beach over that property, or if their deed authorizes them to utilize the beach. We don't plan to change the status quo there. The beach access will still remain the same.
We'd like to have some money available so that we can make it safer and more accessible to the people who have the rights to use that beach. But at this point, we do not have any intention of changing the status quo, that the people who have a deeded right to use that beach or cross that beach still will. And otherwise, the access to that beach is the business of the owners of the beach.
Separate tax map parcel number, right?
That's correct.
Tax pack, it's a separate tax number. The road and the beach are not connected to any other parcel that is involved with this project. The project is completely perimetered by the roads of Sagamore and Milrose and the main road there.
Sure.
Nothing on the other sides of those roads. So Camp Tech Road, the dead end and the beach are on a completely separate deed.
Okay. Just short-term concerns for the zoning. What-
There were concerns mentioned about short-term rental, some of these places in the future being used as short-term rentals. The town of Lake Luzerne does have a local law regarding short-term rentals. They have limited the number at 120. Right now, we've issued a couple new ones, so I'm 72 is where we're at. So there is the potential that some of these homes will be may be used as short-term rentals, but again, it's the same as any other house in Lake Luzerne. They have the right to do that. It has no bearing on the subdivision at all, because the town has set the limit as to what will be allowed, and we're not at that limit yet.
And just to be clear, it's not our intent to own some of these lots in the purpose of short-term rental.
If the association is not formed, the planning board needs to ensure that permanent deed restrictions of the conserved lands are put in place per the zoning ordinance. Add on plat the areas that need to be dedicated a conservation easement.
Yeah, so the proposed plans do have the conservation easement shown on them. There, if you go to sheet 2, it's kind of a lighter gray shade called deed restricted open space is the way we're labeling it on the plans. Those would be the proposed deed restricted areas.
Do you have any questions? Pardon? Yes, page 120.
Yes, just for clarification, for something like lot 1, where you've got the deed restricted open space, that space still counts as part of their parcel, correct? And they own that land, they just can't develop anything on it.
That's correct. Yeah, it's still part of their parcel. They own it. But it's in their deed and on the filed maps that it's deed restricted and they can't. There's restrictions on it. They can't.
Garage or.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Does that include like if the owner wanted to try to clear cut whatever forests on that land, is that restricted as a use, or is it just strictly you can't put a building structure on?
Actually, if you look at in your zoning book, under the conservation district, those lands that are set aside as conservation lands, it tells you specifically what they can and cannot be used for. So hold on 1 minute, I'll find it.
You have to state that, Karen, or it's just whatever it says?
Conservation that, open space set aside in a conservation subdivision shall be permanently preserved as required by this code. Developed land shall not impact the conservation value of the permanent open space. The open space protected pursuant to this code must have conservation value as determined by the conservation findings. A significant amount of protected open space shall be contiguous and configured in such a manner as to achieve the conservation goals. Permanent preservation, a permanent deed restriction or conservation easement restricting development of the open space land and allowing use only for, I'm going to say this again, allowing use only for agriculture, forestry, passive recreation, protection of natural resources, or similar conservation purposes shall be granted with the approval of the planning board. Such deed restriction or conservation easement shall be approved by the planning board and shall be required as a condition of the final plat approval. Let me just see.
So it's like it's only to the garden.
Protection shall prohibit residential, industrial, or commercial use of open space land except in connection with agricultural, forestry, and passive recreation, and shall not be amendable to permit such use. Access roads, driveways, wells, underground sewage disposal facilities, local utility distribution lines, stormwater management facilities, trails, temporary structures for passive outdoor recreation, and agricultural structures shall be permitted or preserved on preserved open space with the planning board approval, provided that they do not impair or impact the conservation value of the land. Forestry shall be conducted in conformity with the applicable best management practice. Notations on permanent open space shall be preserved as a portion of one large lot held in private ownership or may be contained in a separate open space lot. Notations on final plot. Preserved open space land shall be clearly delineated and labeled on the subdivision final plat as to its use, ownership, management, method of preservation, and the rights, if any, of the owners on lots in the subdivision and the public to open space land. The final plat shall clearly show that the open space land is permanently preserved for conservation values required by this code and shall include deed recording information in the county clerk's office.
So Karen, the ones that are permitted, we have to actually do that before we approve it. In other words, like somebody, if,
Mary is saying no.
no, like if they want to have a garden and they're, you know, it's agriculture.
Before you approve the preliminary plat or before the person engages in that?
Right. Well, either one, I guess.
So not, as long as it's delineated on their plat, that meets the requirements. And then if anyone wants to do any of those permitted uses, they have to come to the planning board to seek your approval first.
They do.
Right? That's
I'm sorry, I was reading.
Whenever someone buys a house and wants to build a house.
So you'll have to approve any other use that they want to do.
Right. But there's certain uses you can't do, period.
The only ones that you as a planning board can allow are the ones that Karen mentioned.
Questions? Concerns. It's 54 of the subdivision regulation 6.21 talks about water supply and fire protection. The developer's engineer stated in his narrative that they will work with the town to ensure the operating pressures, fire flow requirements will be met. To ensure that fire protection requirements will be met, does the planning board have the authority to approve the subdivision if it doesn't meet the pressure and fire flow requirements? It was made a
I know you're gonna say they're working with the town. I know it's winter. My understanding is don't want to flush too many hydrants and do additional flow testing this time of year. So I know they're working on that piece. There is some sort of likely hydraulic restriction. We don't know if it's as simple as a valve that's broken or not open all the way, or if there is, some sort of tuberculation or buildup causing that restriction, because with this size line and this, from what's coming from the storage tank, it's anticipated we should have over the 500 gallons a minute. That's what's the minimum required for their residential development. So that has to be determined moving forward, which I know they're going to work on. And I believe it's also part of, it's in DOH's purview with their review for the realty subdivision. As far as the planning board having the authority to approve, Mary, I might have to defer to you a little bit, but my understanding, and maybe I'll speculate a little bit here and you can shut me down. But with, existing systems, you don't always have the available fire flow that's needed. You have a set storage tank at a specific elevation and a certain hydraulic capacity that can go through the lines. So you might not always meet, the insurance requirements. So they might need different insurances or different requirements as needed throughout build out. I know this system doesn't have it, but you can look into things such as like coating or painting the caps of hydrants. So the fire department knows when they go there, you're not going to expect any, fire flow out of it. So those are things that could potentially be done, but hopefully this is one of the scenarios where it's either a simple fix or something that could be done with minor looping that can satisfy the fire flow demand. And that's all I'll say.
But how is the planning board going to know that it's okay to approve or not? Well, if they don't approve, that's not a question, but if they want to approve it, how do they know that it's okay to do that?
They'll have to put a condition on it.
Yeah, and for that too, I mean, as was previously stated, this is a DOH realty subdivision. DOH has made the comment as well. They want us to do additional fire flow testing out there to confirm we get that 500. We got like 400 and something gallons a minute last time we were there. And the pressures in the system are great. And actually the initial flow is pretty decent, but it drops quite quickly, the pressure, which indicates the restriction in the line. So, we're gonna work with the town to do that, and the DOH wants us to do that as well. So, even if this board approves it, DOH, they also have to approve it. This is a realty subdivision. We cannot file subdivision plans without a DOH stamp on it. So they have to approve this as well. And it's something that they typically want to see that 500 if possible. And if you can't meet it, they might ask us for an additional storage tank on the site to supply for supplemental fire flows, or they might ask for hydrant restrictions, painting of the hydrants. There's stuff like that as well. So there's mitigation we've worked on in the past with them for this type of thing.
Yeah, and like you said, DOH Realty subdivision, they're the last step of this piece with this. So they're going to issue their formal approval once all other approvals are in place.
Yeah, and with this system too, we're actually looping a larger 8-inch main through this area. So if anything, it's going to help pressures and flows. Obviously, you don't know the full effect of that till it's built, though. But that.
So if we were to approve with the condition of the DOH Realty subdivision also approving it, that's a viable solution.
But do we have to put that condition on there because they have to approve it?
What anyways, that's true as well.
So it's not legally. You can put it on there as like a feel-good condition, but the reality of it is if realty or if DOH doesn't approve it, they can't build it. So you can put it on there.
Unnecessary, it would be an unnecessary.
Yeah. But approving it without the DOH's approval is.
The DOH can't approve that.
Yeah, DOH will, they need you guys to set up before they can,
Somebody's gotta go first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they want to know the local municipalities behind it before they're gonna put their support.
So then from that standpoint, it's not just a feel good thing because it really signals to the DOH that we approve it pending your approval as well, versus we are 100% certain and not concerned about this issue at all. And it flags to them that we are, that the fire issue is something that we have concern about. So we'll defer to them and their judgment on the fire issue.
So
It is actually a concern, yes.
think there's something wrong with the system? Is that what you're saying? That's why you're not getting the 500 or? The reason I ask is, he's already.
I know, and I've had discussions with him as well about this, and I know we've talked, I mean, almost spring here, right? So we've got, our, field guy in touch, was gonna get in touch with them about doing some additional testing out there. They did the initial testing, and our guy's feeling was there had to be either a valve off or some kind of restriction in the line, just because of how the pressure dropped, and he's been doing it for 40+ years, managing water systems. So that was his feeling on it. Where that restriction is the hard part, right? Kind of chasing it down, whether it's a half closed valve somewhere or, tuberculation in line. That's the one thing we got to figure out. We did do a quick model of the system too, just because I was like, well, let me see what happens if I put a tank in with this length of line. What should I be seeing? And we should be seeing fire flows closer to like 800, 900 gallons a minute, even with a 6-inch line. And that was using some pretty conservative estimates as well. So that's what's really given us the indication that there's probably some kind of restriction, whether it's tuberculation or a closed valve. A closed valve is easy, right? You find it, open it up, your flows are good. And usually your pressures will remain high, even with that closed valve, especially with just residential use, which is pretty low flow. It's just when you try to force a whole bunch of water out of it is why.
So you've done testing on the fire hydrants already there in the area?
We did them over on Lake Tour Road, so we're gonna do another testing over on Sagamore as well.
What are their flow rates?
They're interconnected, but this will give us an idea if it's higher in one area than the other, where the replication could be.
500?
Well, that's where we got to do that soon.
So we haven't done it yet. Okay.
Well, it's been winter, blowing hydrants in the winter, opening, shutting valves with freezing conditions, can cause other issues we don't want to cause. So it's we're about to that time of year we can do that again. So.
Else any questions? Since by routine, affecting water flow to the existing homes. Will increased water usage affect water flow to the existing homes, and it's for the town engineer?
I will say no regarding typical domestic flows. This is I'd say a lower impact development. I know they said roughly 4,500 gallons a day. So as far as instantaneous demands for domestic water needs, even with the current hydraulic restriction, it would, based on the modeling that was done, I would say no impact to existing users. The only time you're going to see the impact is with the prior question of when you're trying to obtain fire flows that you can't hit the 500.
Yeah, I mean, and that's also an existing condition out there right now, right? I mean,
yeah,
those homes in that area, they're seeing less than the preferred 500 gallons a minute right now for fire flows as well.
Yeah.
And same thing with DOH as well. That's one thing that they look into. We submitted a report to them. I don't know if I gave it to you as well. Our water engineering report.
Early, I got that. If there's a later one, I don't.
Same one, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, but it talks about the tank volume, the supply volume, all that, and shows what they're using now and how we fit into that. And we're below their maximum capacity, even with our dwellings included.
They also have questions? Codes to Brandon Ferguson, engineer, he commented that at some point in 2025, the state is going to require 1 and 2 family dwellings to have residential sprinkler system. Is there enough water supply for this, and will it affect the water supply? That's for the town engineer. Superintendent, the developer.
I mean, I can start off a little bit with this one. So that's a little bit of speculation on his part, right? We don't know what that new building code is going to say. They've been talking about adding sprinklers to residential homes for years. It's a possibility. Residential sprinkler systems are designed to they don't have to meet the same requirements a commercial sprinkler system does, for obvious reasons. One is cost and affordability. I mean, they do add a huge cost to the home as it is. But I mean, they typically see up to maybe 30 gallons a minute of flow that they're pulling out of the system when there's an issue. And at that point, if there's a fire in the home, you got a fire truck coming in and they're pulling fire flows out of line if they're there. So the 30 gallons a minute is well within the capacity of the system. But
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. And this is something that if it's not really jurisdictional as of yet, I don't know how we
We can't dictate things that aren't.
Yeah,
don't even exist yet.
if it comes about, then I mean, if they have an idea of what the flow is going to be, I mean, that you're lucky in this area of having a pretty high static pressure. So the chances of being able to meet it are good. It's much less than your 500 gallons a minute, like Brandon was stating. I just, until you know, you don't truly know. Your impact would be if you have to upsize water service lines instead of 3/4 inch, if you gotta bump them up a little bit, which again, I think it would be a minor impact, but I don't think you can really plan for something that hasn't been released yet.
There's also dry suppression systems, correct? That, kind of like at a gas station that they use water. So, I don't know if that's, if it run off the same pressure or not, but.
Yeah, and I don't know, I mean, when it's released, I don't know how it's gonna be handled, if it's something that's been approved, is it gonna be grandfathered in, or when they sell lots, will it be required at that time?
A lot of
It's just
speculation.
something that, it's all speculation at this point.
The comment.
Yeah.
All right, next we have streetlights. The lots owned by Luzerne Estates LLC are not in the lighting district. The other lots are in the lighting district. Streetlights being put in. If so, who puts in the streetlights and who pays for them?
Clarify when you say the other lots, is that just all the existing?
That aren't in the cul-de-sac that you get into that, aren't there enough,
State lots are the ones off of Lake Tour Road. The remaining lots, I believe, are Luzerne Woods, correct?
The whole thing is put together as one LLC, so the lots coming off of Lake Tour Road, that's those 4 that are over there. The rest of them come off of Sagamore Street.
But presently,
Are you putting streetlights in?
No, we
No.
weren't proposing any.
just for the purposes of the planning board, the question was kind of answered. This is a town board issue and a planning board issue, but it did get brought up.
but they're not proposed, you said, correct?
That's correct.
Structure concerns, path issues, change the pathway labeling from showed walking UTV path to pedestrian or.
Yeah.
Yep. Streamline local infrastructure and traffic in that area.
I can address that, so I would say no, it'd be minimal impacts, the proposed development with this number of lots, being residential. It would not be anything that we would require them to complete an additional traffic study. We anticipate it to be very minimal, a lower impact because it is residential development. We don't think it's gonna push design or maintenance requirements of the road into another tier for additional trips. There's no high trip generation. This is, again, residential, it's not commercial establishment. We're expecting a lot of vehicle traffic in and out.
And why we're just including you in this too. Do you think it'll be a big impact with 18 more homes out there?
Plowing and that type of thing won't be any big deal.
And that Sagamore Road has been paved in the last 10 or 12 years. So it's decent. I have some repairs to do, but it's decent.
I'll go to the path issues. Sorry. Trying to skip it real quick. Change the pathway from showed walking UTV path to pedestrian and our bicycle paths. The final product will be included in conditions of approval. Can you guys do that?
Yeah, this will be modified pedestrian only, and we'll minimize the width to ensure that that's all that would be on there.
Okay.
And then just for the other question is that it's gonna be the homeowner's responsibility within the deed to maintain.
That's was the other question.
Yep.
Okay. Path.
That's gonna be part of their property, right? The path in front of their.
It's on their property, yeah.
Okay, road issues, the grade, subdivision regulations calls for a 10% grade maximum. The proposed is 12%. Tom McKinney, who works for Warren County Building Codes, who has the authority having jurisdiction, has provided a letter stating they are not concerned with the 12% grade. The superintendent needs to state he is not concerned with the grade as well. The town engineer has stated the developer needs to provide details as to why the 2% grade cannot be met.
I can answer and then I'll leave it off to you. So we stated that because it is a variance. So with a variance, they have to propose justification for it. You know, I'll defer to them. It's likely impractical.
The variance stuff on this letter tonight.
Like I said, it's just likely impractical to obtain a lesser grade in that area just because of the amount of fill and grading that's gonna be required. We don't see it as a major issue, and if there's no concern, you know, from highway regarding winter maintenance, the county, emergency service, traffic, fire department, then we don't see it as an issue.
I do just want to clarify one thing. It's not a variance, it's a waiver from your requirements. I just don't want them to think
No,
they
no,
have to
thank
go to the.
Thank you, yeah.
CPA for that.
Yeah,
They don't.
yeah.
You, as this board, make that decision whether you're gonna give them a waiver from that requirement.
Decisions would be yours too. As far as the grade, you know, going in the plowing.
That's for a reason why.
Yeah, so yeah,
yeah,
I can, and I can read it for you too. We
No,
did,
no,
okay, we did provide a waiver request, you know, that does detail out the reasoning for all these, for this and the next couple as well, so.
The length and width of the cul-de-sac, we have a statement from Warren County Building Codes that the length and width of the cul-de-sac with the circular turnaround and the cul-de-sacs with a handle are acceptable. So we do have that. Do you think that's? Engineer?
I don't have an issue. Again, it was the same reasoning behind it, just to verify.
Okay. The cost, the proposed cul-de-sac will join the two Mills Lane. Is not by the developer, and the town means 0.05 million. How is that portion to be developed and who will bear the costs?
So I did a lot of research on case law and what the board can consider. This is actually not a proper consideration for you.
Okay.
What you could do is you could consider whether the portion that isn't paved, right? Is that the concern?
Yeah.
You could consider whether the portion that isn't paved can't handle additional traffic, but you can't actually consider who's going to pave it, and you cannot mandate that they do that.
What kind of portion that's not paved handle it?
Yeah, I guess I would. Would definitely concerned about. I know if I knew this, once you know, as you,
Right.
right,
Concern is that it needs to be rebuilt and paved from Sagamore.
Yeah, so I'll jump in. We talked about this in some of the other meetings. It's our intent that the developer will work with the town to ensure that it meets the proper standards as what we're putting in throughout the development. So it's not a big area. And I think it's important that it looks finished and complete for the homeowners of that whole area.
and plan 5 dirt road and then you're. Welcome to our site.
Yeah.
To
So, and it's showing on the plan set as well as being
We can't
improved,
ask it.
that area.
Okay.
So it is part of the design plans.
Okay,
If they pave it to those specifications, can it handle the increased traffic?
So I'll say something relatively generic, but typically what's required is there's gonna be either like a performance bond or some sort of subdivision bond that would be required because they're gonna be selling lots before, you know, construction is fully completed. Requirements of that, I know the code is a little older, so I don't know if there's anything that says otherwise in that, and I'll defer Mary if you have anything else moving forward, but typically it would cover construction costs plus a contingency amount. And, you know, there'll be additional costs going through it, you know, additional engineering review and inspection items, and soft costs as well with, you know, attorney's fees and anything else that comes up. So that typically would cover you to get through construction.
When does that occur? Does it,
Fine, so the final approval will have to have the amount. They don't have to provide the bond until they start construction. But that means like any clearing of trees, any road, or you touch.
Yeah, we'd probably be an estimate of the work completed and the bond would be based on that value.
Yeah, it's my recommendation would be have the applicant provide the estimate. And that way, it can be reviewed.
Yeah,
Because you're covering construction essentially, the cost of
Yeah,
construction,
no,
you'll have
I think that's typically how it's done with other bonds.
Yeah.
In other municipalities.
Yeah, we do them all the time. We do a construction estimate. It gets reviewed by the town engineer. We agree on the costs are reasonable, and then that final bond number gets based off of that construction estimate. That's something we can prepare.
Actually, I want to just read into the record because I think we've kind of figured it out, but no, do you want me to read it? It just says that can the town attorney review all the deed restrictions? And it said you did.
No, I did not.
Oh,
They said that, okay, hold on.
I'll start over. How's that?
Town attorney review all the deed restrictions put in the deeds, access to the beach lot by can't be required, not set those restrictions. You mean the current ones or ones that would be put in?
This is something that Carla Bittner put in her comments and concerns.
Oh, she wanted me to review.
She wanted you to review all the deeds.
Yeah, I'm not doing. Like, it's none of my business what the owner of the property does with it.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Basically, it's a private matter. You're not gonna, that's not your responsibility for the subdivision.
Correct. Whoever buys the property should hire their own attorney to look at the deed and the deed restrictions.
And we just put that in there because it was one of the concerns brought up by someone.
Right. So I figured we should just read it.
I could.
Subdivisions 4.6 sold and in section 5.83, does the planning board need to address this? Said the town attorney's answer, this the planning board needs to give reasons why they are not requiring this. For example, since the town is in the process of building a public park, they're not going to require a park in this building. What that is they want you to put a park there. And we discussed it at the plan at the workshop. We believe we all agreed that it wasn't necessary since the town has actually got a playground going up soon. Okay, next, each access land to Tech Road, which is not part of the subdivision. So the planning board can do easements from the roads to the subdivision to this beach access lot. Use your own. No. Other concerns, Welsh and the Corps of Engineers and the park agency stating jurisdictional. Like you said, regulations, this property need to be looked at again for wetlands.
Chime in here. So to start off, to be safe, you could have the applicant just obtain at minimum like an email from the permit contact at DEC. I would anticipate it would still be non-jurisdictional. I'm familiarizing myself with the new requirements here that you sent over. Based off their flow chart, it looks like, it's under, they have a 12.4 acreage threshold, which we're under that. And then they also have a unusual importance criteria, although I'm not exactly sure what the unusual importance is. I don't anticipate that this would trip it with the non-jurisdictional wetlands in the area. But like I said, to be safe, the only thing we could say is, usually DEC, the regional permit contacts, we reached out to them during coordinated review on the environmentals. Nothing came up on that end. So I would anticipate we're okay, but you could potentially get an email if you were overly concerned.
Yeah, we don't mind reaching out to them. Typically, APA is the state agency that has jurisdiction over wetlands within the Adirondack Park, which this project is. And I think actually in the new DC regulations, they specifically reference wetlands outside of the Adirondack Parks of their jurisdiction for New York State DEC. But we don't mind. We have a guy who just handles stuff with DEC every day, so I can easily have him send over an email to him and just confirm that. That way, the board has that document. So.
Last one, I think we already answered. It's about the Rose Lane starts. Okay. That's all I have for the workshop, but does any planning board members have questions? I'd like to answer.
Oh, everything seems to be covered.
Mary, you have anything?
I think we should do this first.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to get that.
We're gonna do the same.
Are you gonna go over the, see, everything is taken care of from your report that you want to address, Jonathan?
In our comment letter,
Yes.
I don't think we received it.
Yeah, we didn't give you a response back yet, but,
Yeah.
but, I mean, we went through it. There wasn't anything,
Yeah.
there was no real changes to the plans for it.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything major. We'll take, like I said, another look at it and get a formal response letter.
Just because we have him here this evening, Ron, do you have any concerns that you want addressed as far as the road, anything? I know when you came in, you looked at the map and he made some, sorry, I'm getting dry throat here. He had made some notations on the design thickness of the road and he wanted some changes made to that, which I can share with you, or he can give you those. He wanted some thickness added, I believe.
3.5 binder, and 2.5 top.
Okay, yeah, that's no problem. Whatever the town requirement is, we're gonna do, so we'll add that, yep.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to?
No.
address?
Oh, I thought.
Okay. Does anyone on the board have any specific questions for the highway superintendent, because he is here?
You plan on taking over the road?
He can't make that.
This town vote has to come
So
through.
it's decision.
And,
But-
and are you waiting for the construction?
You can ask his opinion. on it.
Yeah.
Your opinion on taking over the road?
If
You
the
have
town
no
approves it.
concerns with
Yes.
recommending the town take over the road? Is that,
No, but the town won't take over the road until it's fully complete.
okay? But you see no concerns with the recommending the town
What
after
about
it's
the
complete,
stormwater?
they meet all the requirements and recommendations that you set forth?
What about stormwater?
I'm working with John here and I don't see an issue.
This is just for the record, so just so that you're aware. Anything else anyone can think of that we need to address?
And if the town does not take over the roads, you're willing to create HOA to take over the roads?
Yeah, we would need to, but it's our intent to work with the town to ensure. We feel that if it's built to the standards, that I think it makes sense for you guys to. But if it should not, then yes, we'll put something together to ensure that it's dealt with properly.
So now I guess we're gonna go through the,
John, wanted to go through paper.
I was wondering if you're.
I mean, I think we should split the responsibility.
I can talk. It may be.
well, I didn't know the paperwork. I know.
All right. So start with part 2. Okay,
Well, did everyone review part 1? Everyone look at it?
Want to read that? But-
no. I don't
Want me
think
to
so.
do it?
Oh, okay.
Okay. And so starting with part 2. Again, I'll follow Mary's lead and if I don't bring it up, it's gonna be assumed that it's a no or small impact may occur. So impact on land, proposed action may involve construction on or physical alteration of the land surface of the proposed site. So that's marked yes because of part 1, D1. Do we read each individual one?
Yes.
Or
So
skip
if you
them?
do, if you check yes, you have to read each individual one, but if
Okay.
you check no, you do not.
Okay, all right, so we'll go through it here. The proposed action may involve construction on land where depth of water table is less than 3 feet. Proposed action may involve construction of slopes of 15% or greater. Proposed action may involve construction on land where bedrock is exposed or generally within 5 feet of the existing ground surface. The proposed action may involve the excavation or removal of more than 1,000 tons of natural material. The proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year or in multiple phases. The proposed action may result in increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal, including from treatment by herbicide. The proposed action is or may be located within a coastal erosion hazard area, so they're all flagged no or small impact may occur. Does anybody have any questions on that piece? Okay, number 2, impact on geological features. The proposed action may result in the modification or destruction of or inhibit access to any unique or unusual landforms on the site. For example, cliffs, dunes, minerals, fossils, caves. It's answered no, so we'll move on. Number 3, impacts on surface water. The proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies. For example, streams, rivers, ponds, or lakes. Again, answered no.
If anyone disagrees with the no, you have to speak up.
Item 4, impact on groundwater. The proposed action may result in new or additional use of groundwater or may have the potential to introduce contaminants to the groundwater or an aquifer. That's answered yes. The proposed action may require new water supply wells or create additional demand on supplies from existing water supply wells. Water supply demand from the proposed action may exceed safe and sustainable withdrawal capacity rate of the local supply or aquifer. The proposed action may allow or result in residential uses in areas without water and sewer services. The proposed action may include or require wastewater discharge to groundwater. The proposed action may result in the construction of water supply wells in locations where groundwater is or is suspected to be contaminated. The proposed action may require the bulk storage of petroleum or chemical products over groundwater or an aquifer. The proposed action may involve the commercial application of pesticides within 100 feet of potable drinking water or irrigation sources. So again, no or small impact may occur. Any questions or concerns? Number 5, impact on flooding. The proposed action may result in a development on land subject to flooding. Answer is no. 6, impacts on air. The proposed action may include a state regulated air emission source. It's flagged as yes. We'll go through these. If the proposed action requires federal or state air emission permits, the action may also emit one or more greenhouse gases at or above the following levels. More than 1,000 tons per year of carbon dioxide, more than 3.5 tons a year of nitrous oxide, more than 1,000 tons a year of carbon equivalent of perfluorocarbons, more than 0.045 tons per year of sulfur hexafluoride, more than 1,000 tons a year of carbon dioxide equivalent of hydrochlorofluorocarbons emissions. 43 tons per year of more of methane. The proposed action may generate 10 tons a year or more of any one designated hazardous air pollutant, or 25 tons a year or more of any combination of such hazardous air pollutants. The proposed action may require a state air registration or may produce emissions rate of total contaminants that may exceed 5 pounds per hour, or may include a heat source capable of producing more than 10 million BTUs per hour. The proposed action may reach 50% of any of the thresholds in A through C above. The proposed action may result in the combustion or thermal treatment of more than 1 ton of refuse per hour. No to all of them. In 7, impact on plants and animals. The proposed action may result in a loss of flora or fauna. It's marked as a yes. The proposed action may cause reduction in population or loss of individuals of any threatened or endangered species as listed by New York State or the federal government that use the site or are found on, over, or near the site. B, the proposed action may result in a reduction or degradation of any habitat used by any rare, threatened, or endangered species as listed by New York State or the federal government. The proposed action, C, the proposed action may cause reduction in population or loss of individuals of any species of special concern or conservation needs as listed by New York State or the federal government that use the site or are found on, over, or near the site. D, the proposed action may result in a reduction or degradation of any habitat used by any species of special concern and conservation need as listed by New York State or the federal government. So no or small impact may occur. Oh, keep going, sorry. E, The proposed action may diminish the capacity of a registered national natural landmark to support the biological community it was established to protect. F, the proposed action may result in the removal of or ground disturbance in any portion of the designated significant natural community. G, the proposed action may substantially interfere with nesting, breeding, foraging, or overwintering habitat for the predominant species that occupy or use the project site. H, the proposed action requires the conversion of more than 10 acres of forest, grassland, or any other regionally or locally important habitat. I, proposed action involves use of herbicides or pesticides. So again, no, or small impact may occur. 8, impact on agricultural resources. The proposed action may impact agricultural resources. No. 9, impact on aesthetic resources. The land use of the proposed action are obviously different from or are in sharp contrast to current land use patterns between the proposed project and the scenic or aesthetic resource. No. Impact on historic and archaeological resources. The proposed action may occur in or adjacent to a historical or archaeological resource. It's answered as a yes. So A, the proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to any buildings, archaeological site or district which is listed on the National or State Register of Historical Places or that has been determined by the Commissioner of the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation to be eligible for listing on the State Register of Historic Places. B, the proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to an area designated as sensitive for archaeological sites on the New York State Historic Preservation Office Archaeological Site Inventory. C, the proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to an archaeological site not included on the New York SHPO inventory. E, if any of the above A through D are answered, moderate to large impact may occur. Continue with the following questions to help support conclusions in part 3. The proposed action may result in the destruction or alteration of all or part of the site of property or property. The proposed action may result in the alteration of the property's setting or integrity. 3, the proposed action may result in the introduction of visual elements which are out of character with the site or property or may alter its setting. So no or small impact may occur for everything. 11, impact on open space and recreation. The proposed action may result in a loss of recreational opportunities or reduction of an open space resource as designated in any adopted municipal open space plan. No. 12, impact on the critical environmental areas. The proposed action may be located within or adjacent to a critical environmental area. No. 13, impact on transportation. The proposed action may result in a change to existing transportation systems. No. 14, impact on energy. The proposed action may cause an increase in the use of any form of energy. No. 15, impact on noise, odor, and light. The proposed action may result in an increase in noise, odors, or outdoor lighting. Yes. So A, the proposed action may produce sound above noise levels established by local regulation. B, the proposed action may result in blasting within 1,500 feet of any residence, hospital, school, licensed daycare center, or nursing home. C, the proposed action may result in routine odors for more than 1 hour per day. D, the proposed action may result in light shining onto adjoining properties. E, the proposed action may result in lighting creating sky glow brighter than existing area conditions. Or F, other impacts. So no or small impact may occur. 16, impact on human health. The proposed action may have an impact on human health from exposure to new or existing sources of contamination. No. 17, consistency with community plans. The proposed action is not consistent with the adopted land use plans. It's marked as a yes. A, the proposed action's land use components may be different from or in sharp contrast to current surrounding land use patterns. B, the proposed action will cause the permanent population of the city, town, or village in which the project is located to grow by more than 5%. C, the proposed action is inconsistent with local land use plans or zoning regulations. D, the proposed action is inconsistent with any county plans or other regional land use plans. E, the proposed action may cause a change in the density of development that is not supported by the existing infrastructure or is distant from existing infrastructure. F, the proposed action is located in an area characterized by low density development that will require new or expanded public infrastructure. G, the proposed action may induce secondary development impacts, for example, residential or commercial development not included in the proposed action. So again, no or small impact may occur. 18, consistency with community character. The proposed project is inconsistent with the existing community character. Answered as no.
Yeah, just a quick question.
Yeah,
On number 15, impact noise ordinary, is that due to the construction?
that's due to construction. So anything that's flagged as a yes in this, although all the subsequent items are no or small impact may occur for each section, you address as we go through part 3.
Okay. Thanks.
Everybody okay with part 2? So part 3 is essentially taking anything we completed in part 2, and as the planning board, you're welcome to add or revise any language within this. This is just a draft we put together to kind of help speed up the process. So anything we answered yes on, we just wanted to go through and just provide additional reasoning. So essentially 1B, we put a portion of the site will involve construction on slopes 15% or greater. The project will only impact areas required for building, roadways, and stormwater management, with the adjacent slopes left undisturbed, with the use of erosion sediment controlled devices during construction and limiting the disturbance of the existing topography to the extent possible. No significant environmental impacts will occur. 1E, the project will consist of 3 phases. In addition, the proposed roads will be built in each phase in order to develop the lots along that section of road. The proposed anticipated completion date of the final phase is December 2030. This work will be completed in accordance with all regulations and permits and is not anticipated to create a moderate or large environmental impact. 1F, the project consists of 3 acres of impervious surface out of 33 acres, creating stormwater runoff from new point sources from roadside swales and culverts. Erosion sediment control devices will be utilized during construction to limit any environmental impacts in accordance with the New York State DEC stormwater pollution prevention plan requirements under the general permit. 4, the proposed project will result in an additional use of groundwater, although is minor due to the proposed build out and projected demands. 4A, the proposed project will create an additional demand on supplies from existing water supply wells. Total anticipated water usage is 4,500 gallons per day and will be supplied by the existing public water supply from the town of Lake Luzerne Water District. This is considered a minor impact to existing demands that is not anticipated to create a moderate or large environmental impact. 4D, the proposed project includes generation of 4,500 gallons per day of waste, but will be treated using on-site wastewater treatment systems in accordance with New York State DOH Realty subdivision and town requirements. 6, the proposed action will generate air emissions only during construction periods from the use of heavy equipment and machinery, reducing and limiting the occurrence of adverse environmental impacts. 7, the proposed project site contains a species of concern listed by New York State, the pygmy snaketail. I'm not going to pronounce the next name. There will be no significant adverse environmental impacts to the species in that they are threatened by the impact of water contamination or the alteration of natural hydrology. This species inhabits pristine flowing waters and are sensitive to pollutants. Their larvae are found in water, and generally the impoundments of water are a threat to the species. No pesticides are being used on the site, and there's no construction located around any water bodies, limiting the environmental impact to the pygmy snaketail. DC permitting will be completed to verify any potential implications to any species of concern. And again, nothing was flagged during coordinated review, which we'll go over that after I finish this piece. Applicant shall provide SHPO sign off. I believe that was already provided. Yes. Right, so that can be either stricken or left and just included with us. 15, the proposed project will result in an increase in noise, but will be limited to the hours of construction, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and will cease once the project is complete. Additionally, the project will have typical residential outdoor lighting facing downward and will be dark sky compliant. 17, the proposed project is located in an area where the town of Lake Luzerne has a comprehensive land use plan, but the plan does not have any specific recommendations for the proposed site. The proposed site is also located in a municipality with a zoning law or ordinance, but the use of the site is permitted. So, before we go on, the other piece that should be reviewed are the coordinated review items that come in. So since this is a type 1 action with coordinated review, there's a letter that goes out to the involved agencies, and then there's responses that come back. Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we just got
Just DEC.
which is typical. So that's usually all you get. So I don't know if everybody got to see the letter.
I think it was included in your packet
Okay.
somewhere.
So essentially, it doesn't state anything that we're not already aware of. So they have no issue with the planning board serving as lead agency, stating that you're gonna need a speedy general permit for stormwater discharge from construction activities that we're already aware of. And then the archaeological sites and sensitivity, which is essentially thrown out because they receive SHPO sign off. So Mary, I can defer to you to. Seeker status going through it is a type 1. So parts 1, 2, and 3 were completed. The checkbox up here just says this project will result in no significant adverse impacts on the environment, and therefore an environmental impact statement need not be prepared. Accordingly, this negative declaration is issued. So I'll defer to you, Mary, if there's anybody else with questions.
I'll make a motion that this project will result in no significant adverse impacts on the environment, and therefore an environmental impact statement need not be prepared.
I'll second.
All right, motion that this project will result in significant adverse impacts on the environment and therefore an environmental impact statement shall not be prepared. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
This form. You've got name of responsible officer in lead agency as me, should usually John signs these.
That should be changed.
Put
Yeah,
it,
you
make
can
it,
just cross it out and, yep,
I can handwrite the change, it's not an issue.
yes, yeah, that's fine. I think Karen, you were just the contact for coordinator review,
Yeah.
and you'll be holding the final environmentals in case anybody ever wants to see.
So I'm also going to cross off zoning enforcement officer and put chairman.
Yep.
Of the planning board. Okay.
Thoughts on public hearing.
At this stage, thank you, everybody.
Do they need, don't, so that this, that motion that they made is, he had prepared a resolution.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I have to include something in the paperwork to close out this.
So, yeah, that's a negative declaration resolution, which
Right.
you essentially went through, so it's just a duplicate, just formally.
So if I just get John to sign that, we're good. All right.
And then we'll work with you, Karen, just to get it in the DC's environmental notice bulletin for final closeout.
Okay.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
If you close the public hearing, you have to vote within 62 days. So.
I think it'll be fine.
I'll second.
Motion to close the public hearing, roll call vote. Tony Springer,
Yes.
Josh Fisher,
Yes.
Michael Panich,
Yes.
Rose Albatura,
Yeah.
Pamela Pettis,
Yeah.
Mary Ellen Allison,
Yes.
John Krinsky.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
6 votes yes, 1 vote no, motion carried.
As far as voting on the preliminary plat, I believe that we need to.
So I mean, I know it's really late, but I don't know if you guys just want to get this over with. My suggestion would be to go through your considerations and just discuss them on the record. So that there's a record for why you're making your decision. I would then advise you to not vote tonight on whether to approve or deny. So that you can put something in writing in the next month and you can approve something that's in writing. But in order to put something in writing, you guys really need to discuss on the record each of these considerations. They're on page 25. It's 4.34. You don't have to make any decisions, just discuss them. You can also have a special meeting if you want to go home tonight. Between now and next month, if you'd rather do it at a special meeting. It's up to you, right? Okay, subdivision, it's up to, yeah, public rights. It's also in the email I sent you. That one's here for you.
Take a chance to make sure that we list all the conditions.
What we should do is take this, I'll draft something, and then I'm gonna send it around by email for comment. I'm gonna draft it. One of the and.
Should we go one by one through the items?
So,
So requirements of the community.
so I was just gonna say, the requirement, so. Preliminary plat takes into consideration the requirements of the community because, or it doesn't because.
So start by saying the community put a lot of time and effort into a comprehensive plan. One of the major things that came out of that was the need for more housing for middle-class families in Lake Luzerne to increase the school district enrollment for the betterment of the community and the businesses in the community. I would say that's probably my main consideration, taking the application into account. I think they've done a nice job of meeting the character of Lake Luzerne. They're not trying to pack 70 houses into it. They've done a conservation easement, which is appropriate for our community.
They've also considered different ways to use the property and has approached us many times on how to use the property until it best suited our community.
I'm in agreement with those statements.
It either fits the best use of the land being subdivided because, or it does not fit the best use of the land being subdivided because.
I think that just the use of the conservation subdivision as the kind of the framework for their development helps to maintain the character of the lands surrounding the lake and of that community that's up there. And then in addition to that, should help preserve that future character down the line due to the deed restrictions that will be included in the development.
Great. The arrangement, location, and the design of the streets are acceptable because or are not acceptable because.
I would say they're acceptable. They've met all the town requirements as far as width and slope and all the other things we've discussed.
Anything that we've recommended, they've taken into consideration and made the changes.
On what it doesn't seem to be a big issue, taking care of that.
I think the use of the cul-de-sacs are appropriate for the volume of lots that are being developed here. I think they'll make for a pleasant space for the people that may move into these places. Cul-de-sacs in general are good for kids running around and stuff. Safer place to have that sort of pedestrian movement without concern of high velocity traffic, vehicular traffic, so. And then it looks like the way that the cul-de-sacs and the hammerhead were designed meet all the requirements for the fire and safety emergency services, so. Everything seems to be done appropriately.
So we have 62 days. Now, if some of the queries were, as far as certain things, we have to take that into consideration too, right? Mary?
I heard you, I don't understand.
Well, for instance, trying to think of one of the items that we were. Some of the items that aren't really approved by DOH or any, health departments, all this stuff. We don't have information in 62 days. What does that mean?
But we won't in many cases, like the DOH.
We got
is not gonna
62
come
days
to-
I guess, I know.
So they're gonna take, if you have any modifications that you want them to make, they need to make those modifications and then submit a final plat. You're not gonna get any of those approvals from state agencies until the final phase of this, and you may not even get them before you're ready to approve it. But those have no bearing really on the next 62 days.
I guess that's why it wasn't, I voted no, because I thought we didn't have enough information yet, but
You wouldn't have it at this stage.
around 62 days, let's say we still
Still-
don't have it.
This is just a preliminary plat. You
But
still
we-
have to. go
we
through
could leave-
the security.
But what I'm saying is, we have to approve it, or they have to go through the whole thing again, right? After 62 days, because we can't disapprove it.
No. If we had not closed the public hearing for another 300 days, we still wouldn't get approval from DOH because they won't do that until we've gone through this and approved it, the preliminary plat.
So it has to be certain conditions anyway, all the way down through the line. I mean,
I don't think you're gonna put conditions on the
Well-
preliminary plat unless there's something you wanna see before they bring back the final plat. The final plat has to be substantially similar to the preliminary plat. If they don't wanna have another public hearing. So if there's any modifications you want, you need to tell them before they bring the final plat to you guys.
but we will have another public hearing eventually, correct? Oh, I thought it was mandatory.
It's only mandatory if you,
If they
show
change.
environmental impacts, or it doesn't substantially comply with the preliminary plat. You can certainly have
All
one,
right,
you could choose to have one,
I guess,
it's not required.
I mean, I'm a little. We haven't made any requests for them to change their plots or
No.
change the footprint, so I don't really quite understand why.
well, there's things that aren't done yet, we don't know. I mean, they even said that some of it might not be approved to the very end, we don't know
As
what's
far as DOH goes,
DOH, the water pressures,
Yeah, I mean,
in my opinion, it's DOH's responsibility to determine the water pressure. I don't know that it's the town planning board's decision. I mean, that's what DOH exists for that reason, right? So.
Well, you already talked about putting the condition on the final plat that they have DOH approval.
so we can't do that.
We'll do that on the final plat.
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, I'll jump in real quick. I mean, we've done projects before where you need DEC, DOH approval, you get town approval. We can't we can't file plans at the county until DOH stamps them and the town stamps them, right?
Okay.
And usually DOH will stamp them before the town. But we've gone, you know, we've had to get extensions on projects before that were approved by the town, because usually the approvals are only good for so long. We've had to get extensions before, as we're waiting for outside agency approval, state agency approval. But yeah, their approval is required prior to your final stamp on the plans, and then our signature, and then being filed with the
Because
council.
I'm hearing the 62 days where stuff has to be done before that, and you're telling me no. That's why I said no on my vote, because I said 62 days, I don't think we're gonna get it.
Correct.
But that wouldn't matter in this approval that board just did. Okay,
Well, you haven't done anything.
well, we just,
You just closed the public.
that's what I meant, close the public hearing. I guess that's why I didn't want to close it till we had all the answers, but I guess that. And then you're still saying 62 days from the close of the public hearing till we have to make a decision.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Make your decision.
Okay.
You make your decision in 62 days, it's automatically approved.
Just the preliminary.
But it's preliminary. It's the preliminary.
The final.
Already discussed here.
So what other questions do we have?
Street location of topography.
No.
I guess I wasn't clear on, well, go ahead.
The cul-de-sac was the last one.
Yeah, we're on number 4 of your list, Mary. Streets location to topography, water supply and sewage disposal appears to be appropriate given the existing conditions of the site. They've taken everything into account and they've seemingly designed the most appropriate solution to the existing conditions that are present. Yes. Drainage of the lots also seems appropriate. I know that there's been public comment concerns about the stormwater increasing on the existing streets that lead up to the subdivision, but it appears that from the way that the actual topography is, as has been stated a few times, it's more inward facing, so the stormwater is going to be more contained within the site itself, and so I think those concerns are not necessary. Just been discussed and reviewed by the town engineer. So that's been addressed. Those concerns, I think, have been addressed and put to bed.
You want to specifically address the aquifer?
What's that?
You want to specifically address the concerns about the aquifer or not?
Specifically to the aquifer, it's been stated many times by the town engineer that they've gone beyond the DOH requirements, which are 200 feet away from the wells. They're at 600 feet minimum distance away. It was also stated tonight from the engineer that worst case scenario with certain existing conditions that aren't present on the site, that number might have gone up to 300-foot requirement, and we're still, or not we, but the developer is still 600 feet. So that's still double what that worst case scenario requirement would have been. And then it is significant, I think, to note that, you know, while all of these new proposed developed subdivision lots are beyond that 600-foot range, there are several existing properties and buildings within those properties and presumably their septic systems within that 600-foot range. And so, you know, if those exist and have been developed without major concern, I don't see why there is an issue with these brand new developments, which will be in a much finer, presumably finer condition, being brand new and designed, engineered with 2025 standards versus 1968 standards. That I think that there's not really going to be that concern isn't really justified for any sort of issues with the aquifer.
Septic system doesn't affect on.
They should have. That's the reason for that 200-foot setback is, worst case scenario, if there's leaky septic system. If it's more than 200 feet away, it's not an issue with that aquifer, and these are 600 feet.
Yeah.
That's okay. Can you keep going through my questions?
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm like, you.
Lot sizes and arrangements are, given that this is the conservation development, they're, it's really a best case scenario for the town getting their long stated goal of having more development in the town, but not at the cost of, the soul and character of the town. So it seems like
And it
this
fits
is
into the landscape of the.
exactly,
property. They worked very hard to do that.
this seems like a very thoughtful development. Number 7, the placement of utilities. So I know that a lot of well, electric wise, there's not going to be streetlights, so that isn't really a concern. Sanitary stuff's all going to be self-contained to each lot, which is standard for what we do here. The water would be the other major issue, and as it's been stated that the regular day-to-day pressures are fine above and beyond what they need, but there is still an unknown about the fire pressure, the 500 gallons a minute. But they can't make that determination with frozen temperatures outside, and so that's kind of a wait and see. But again, that is more of the DOH's jurisdiction than ours.
And
And
they have research putting the tanks on site if there is an issue.
yes, if it ends up after they've determined that they just can't achieve those, there are solutions that they are willing to investigate that would get them across that finish line with the DOH. So it doesn't seem like whenever it comes time, if we were to approve the final.
There's no tank on site if they need one. Typically, how big is it? Is it huge? Is it,
Hopefully, we don't have to go there.
Okay.
It could get very expensive, because you're talking about fire flow, so whatever the minimum is. 500 gallons a minute for an hour, you're talking a substantial size tank that you have some design constraints you have to deal with, because we're in a lower area, obviously with the higher static pressures you have in the area. So I don't know what you'd have to do. I mean, the most economical, I'm hoping we don't have to go there, because essentially
Okay.
you'd have to put, probably the cheapest capital cost way would be not loop your water main and put in a smaller tank with like a fire pump or something of that nature, just to handle your fire flow in that area, because otherwise you're not gonna meet the static elevations and get the, what is it, 80+ PSI over there? Yeah, it's not economically feasible. I don't think it's something the town would wanna take over after the fact. There's options you can, do, it just has to be further evaluated if we get to that point.
okay.
So that satisfied everybody? Okay. So the next item is future development of adjoining lands not yet subdivided. I feel like this is a not applicable situation. This is kind of the whole of the donut of everything else around it. The donut itself is all developed, and that this is kind of filling in the last bit, as far as I understand the existing conditions out there. I guess we should address the other questions that always come up about the use of the beach being not applicable either. And that's the private owners.
Not our concern.
Not our concern. It's not our ability to be concerned
It's
about
not
it.
part of the.
Has its own separate tax map parcel.
Mhm.
And what else do you say?
So we don't have the ability to dictate what
No.
they can or can't do with that. It's not our place.
Nope.
That's the entity of the planning board. Last item is requirements in the land use plan or zoning ordinance. And I
Does
don't,
that mean like? the acre
I need more
thresholds,
married to
Requirements in the land use plan?
or zoning ordinance.
So this is where the waivers are gonna come in, so they are asking for a couple waivers from the, zoning ordinance and the subdivisions.
So this,
Regulations.
Okay.
Did everyone read the letter that you got from the developers engineer? Their reasonings are.
Right. so this includes stuff like the requirement for going beyond the 10% max slope on the road. Their reasoning being that it's just given the existing slopes that are out there, it's unfeasible to stay at or below 10%. The superintendent seemed to be okay with the 12% that they proposed.
Yeah, Ronnie.
So,
Right.
building inspector didn't have a comment either, right?
So,
He was our town engineer.
Didn't have a problem with it.
right, so everybody that's reviewed it, the people that would be impacted, like the highway and the fire, are okay with it. So I think that if they are okay with it, we can be okay with it as well. So I would say that that waiver would be given to them. Next item was the design standards requiring a minimum pavement width in the cul-de-sac be 28 feet. Proposed roadway list 28 feet meeting town standards. However, the legs off the T turnarounds at the ends of the proposed road A and B have a pavement width of 22 feet. 22 feet is proposed in order to minimize the total pavement of the turnaround. The 22 feet proposed is sufficient to turn around an emergency vehicle and or town truck and exceeds the 20-foot required in Appendix D of the New York State Fire Code. So I think that is okay as is as well.
Superintendent did not have a problem with that.
Yeah, the authority having jurisdiction, which was Tom McKinney, also was all right with that.
So then Article 5, Section 5.22, design standards requiring cul-de-sac roadways have maximum grades within 150 feet of centerline intersection. Bullet 1. The roadway intersection at Millrose Lane and Sagamore Drive is an existing condition that cannot be modified without impacting the neighboring landowners. Bullet 2, Road A has a maximum slope of 3% from the center line of Millrose Place. However, Millrose Place has a slope of 12% at this intersection. It's 12% slope is necessary due to the existing topography. This is a 3-leg intersection with Millrose Lane being the through road. No stop sign will be proposed on Millrose Lane at this intersection, and vehicles approaching Millrose Lane from Road A will be required to stop. Last bullet. Road B will have a slope of less than 3% for the first 50 feet from the intersection with Lake Tor Road. It should be noted that vehicles entering Lake Tor Road from Road B will be traveling uphill at slow speeds, and any risk of sliding out into Lake Tor Road is minimal. I have no comment.
Except their.
Except their,
Yeah.
yes, their reasoning. Article, is that 6?
Yes.
Roman knowledge is minimal. Section 6.215 requiring roadside ditches proposed are no longer than 400 feet. The longest roadside swale proposed on the project site is on the order of 680 feet along Millrose Lane. With the well draining soil conditions on the site, the swales will allow for infiltration and filtration of the stormwater runoff prior to entering the downstream stormwater management devices. It should also be noted that in steeper areas, check dams will be installed in the swales to slow flows, reduce erosion, and promote infiltration. So that, if anybody's confused on what that means, it's the total length of this swale is longer than it should be, but they're installing check dams in the middle of that. Water coming down, if it's not going into the ground, will be stopped by this barrier and kind of build up so that it's not, causing erosion or anything. It stops, makes everything slow down. If it ends up still not infiltrating and going over the check dam, then it will continue its way. But it's a way to slow down, so you're not having, rills and erosion happen. And it's the appropriate thing to do for stormwater management. From my perspective.
Except that does.
Not even gonna take. notes
Design
on that.
rules, man.
I do. I do actually. So, yeah, I think that everything they're doing is appropriate. And so I think that
They're
the,
meeting every other requirement under the land use plan and zoning, that's correct.
so I think
So
that
do we have to make a motion to accept? Okay. Okay, all right.
So then, do I propose to table the rest of the discussion until next month?
You don't have to table it, just don't make a motion to.
So, okay. No motions.
Or we could. We need to.
I think it
absorb.
would be right.
We need to let it absorb.
I would, yeah, we have 62 days, there's no need to rush. And I think we should. The preliminary plat,
Plans.
I propose no modifications.
Other than that pathway,
The change in the verbiage,
We'll correct that.
which they have stated will change. So just, as a pedestrian only pathway? Or something like that.
Yeah, no UTV, and
Yeah, so they stated on the record that they're gonna change the wording to be pedestrian only, and they're also decreasing the width of that path to encourage only pedestrians.
So I am gonna put that as a modification for the final.
and the owners of the property will take care of the pathways. According to them.
Right, that's not,
it will be it'll be. Pathways will be maintained by the owner.
Alright, so
Right.
final plat will. What is it, UTV?
mention of UTV.
Shared walk, it says shared walking slash UTV path.
And then how, you're gonna reduce the width.
It would make it 4 feet. It'll still allow two pedestrians to pass comfortably, but you know, that's not wide enough for UTVs and stuff to ride down usually anywhere with. I think it's like 5 right now, 5 or 6, but we're like 4.
So with that, do we just move on to the minutes? Or do we have to do anything more official to move on to the next topic?
I make a motion to approve both these minutes at the same time. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the January 22nd, 2025 and February 19th, 2025 minutes.
Second,
You can approve. All in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Any new or old business?
Make a motion to close the meeting.
Okay, hang on.
Okay.
Yeah, put you in charge. I'll put you in charge.
March meeting is March 26th, right?
Wait, old business.
What's that?
No.
No,
March 26th?
Yeah.
but, Ken, remember what we discussed?
No, I don't need to.
Okay.
I.
Yep.
You feel good about it? Okay. Yes.
So going forward, do we, based on what we did tonight, should there, we've got 62 days, but we have a meeting next month with them on the agenda.
Sure.
Okay, just double checking.
62 days is to approve the preliminary plat, and that's it. Correct. Okay. Are you all set?
Yeah, have a nice night. Yeah, we'll see you.
Very good. What we have to do, yes. And if there's no major changes, we do not have to recommend, we don't have to recommend it for the public hearing.
Yeah, we were all business, Karen. That's fine.
It was a boundary line adjustment in a subdivision.
No, we figured that out.
Yeah, we got it. What I would like to do. The town's bought a new program to, excuse me. Do the minutes of the meetings and, it makes, as you can see, the last one that you got, it's 20-some pages long because it's almost word for word. I would like to, instead of printing it every month for you, just send it electronically. Please review them at home. And I'm not going to print it out individually for you. It wastes a lot of paper. So I just wanted to bring that up to make sure that you review them. If you do have anything that you want changed, but again, it's pretty much word for word now. let us know and we will make the corrections and. Or you can even say it when you vote on it here to approve it. But I just wanted to let you know, I don't think I'm gonna print them out anymore in the future. If anybody wants them, they are posted on the town website under meeting minutes, and you can always go back and read them. Tucker's been very good about getting them out within a month. They're usually more quicker than that onto the town website. So if anyone needs any to go back to read what we did, for instance, a previous site plan review that we had done, just go on to the town website and they're all listed there anyway.
Do we need to make a motion to not print meeting minutes anymore?
You don't even have to approve them.
Do we all? Okay, if there's no other business, then make a motion, we close the meeting. All in favor? None?
Just make that.